What's up, Multiplexers? Welcome to another edition of Crisis on Earth Plex. It is our Arrowverse discussion show where we talk about everything Supergirl, Arrow, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Black Lightning, and more shows to come in the future. But we are here to talk about what happened this week in the world of the Arrowverse and preview the stuff coming next week as the big three-night crossover, Elseworlds, is almost upon us. I am one of your hosts for the evening, the Cosmic Nightfury, Nico Suave Regoli, and joining me, as always, is the reigning TV Throwdown Arrowverse champion of the world, Zaddeus Smith. How are you tonight, my brother?
Doing good, sir. Doing good. How about yourself?
I am doing great as well, and as you can see, I'm rocking your swag, the Arrowverse champion Zaddeus Smith t-shirt. Go buy it on our TeePublic.
Yes,
see
sir.
Josh McCouga, I can do that shit too. But my rivalry with Josh McCouga aside, Christian, please book that match. Anyway, we're here to talk about everything big that happened in the Arrowverse this week. And a lot of stuff did happen as it should the week before you have the big crossover. Very interesting time to throw some curveballs your way. And speaking of curveballs, I have no transition for that. I'm off my game tonight. I don't know where I was going. There's no baseball analogies I can make for this week. So
first stepping up to the plate will be Mr. Nico Suave Regoli with a good rendition of what happened on this week on Supergirl. Correct? There we go.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
And
I got you back.
Yes. So this past Sunday we had for Supergirl. It was the episode titled Bunker Hill, directed by Kevin Smith, the fat man himself. And yes, I always love it when Kevin Smith has a role in these shows. And, had I been listening to his podcast recently, I probably would have known he was directing this episode before today. But now that I know, better late than never. And a lot of stuff did happen. Mostly we're getting an idea of what Nia Nall can actually do. And so basically she's having – this is where we start to where in the comics she's known as the character of Dreamer, which is she can basically dream the future. And we get a lot of glimpses of that here as throughout the episode she's slowly uncovering little details of a dream she's having in which someone is supposedly getting murdered by Agent Liberty, and there's this weird crane there, and Kara and Brainy are trying to help Nia figure out the pieces of the puzzle that are missing in her dream. Meanwhile, J'onn J'onzz is trying to reel in Manchester Black, who's basically on the warpath. He has figured out who Agent Liberty is. It is Ben Lockwood, and he ends up terrorizing Ben Lockwood in his own home in front of his wife, threatens to kill her, and gets very sadistic. Like he makes he makes Ben find the suit in his house, the Agent Liberty suit, which his wife did not know was there. And that's the interesting thing is because of the fact that he has this show on TV now, Ben Lockwood is trying to distance himself from that identity of Agent Liberty because he feels like he likes this platform of being behind a desk more than he does going out in public under this mask. He likes that he can just speak his mind freely. But Manchester Black, he says, put the suit on or I'm going to shoot your wife in the head. And he does. And then to make things even more sadistic, he's like, now you're going to die in the suit you killed Fiona in, because he just can't let it go that Agent Liberty murdered his wife. And I don't blame him for that. That said, he's got a lot of rage and it's leading to a lot of consequences. And that turns out to be what Nia Nall has been seeing in her dream. What she was seeing was this encounter in an nth metal factory, by the way, which we mentioned in the first episode of Crisis on Earth Plex when we were covering season 1. Basically, Manchester Black, Agent Liberty, they're having a conflict there. Supergirl is trying to break up the conflict and just bring everyone to a halt, and Nia, she manages to stop Ben Lockwood's wife from being murdered like she saw in the dream by using the hook, and she knocks her out of the way, or rather, she knocked Manchester out of the way, saving Ben Lockwood's wife.
Mhm.
And Ben Lockwood ends up getting apprehended by Supergirl, by the authorities, but he does not go quietly. He manages to get the people on his side as he's taken into cuffs, mentioning that, hey, you now see my identity. What about Supergirl? Can you figure out this lady's identity even though she doesn't wear a mask at all?
It should be so easy, but continue.
And so that leads to Supergirl meeting up with the president at the DEO headquarters. And the president, he's very focused on like poll numbers and things that really aren't important in the grand scheme of things. But he shows her an article from, I think it was the National City Enquirer.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And he's basically like, we need transparency. Ben Lockwood had a point, as awful as he is. You are a federal employee, and yet we let you operate under a secret identity. Again, even though you don't wear a goddamn mask. We could literally run facial recognition on you if we wanted it. Why haven't we?
Right.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
That's crazy. Like, this agency has some of the best technology in that universe. And for Earth at least, and yet they're not using it to identify their main employee. Like, they could literally just say, "Oh, it's that reporter chick from Catco." Okay, but they're not even bothering to do the work that they can do.
I don't think they've had to go that far. I'm pretty sure somewhere in that DO, Alice has a picture of herself and Kara. All somebody needs to do is take a look at the picture, take a look at Supergirl. Take a look at the picture. Take a look at Supergirl. It's the glasses. And boom! That's it. And I've never understood it. Her or Clark Kent.
But anyway, because she doesn't want to reveal her identity, even though it's very easy to look it up, she basically resigns from the DEO, and she tells Alex, make sure you keep the DEO the way it is in terms of what it stands for. Make sure that John's message of peace does not fall through the cracks. And as she flies out of the DEO building, she flies over the prison where Ben Lockwood is being apprehended, or rather incarcerated. And his wife, although she was disappointed at first that her husband was Agent Liberty, when she sees him going into jail while Supergirl roams free, she starts chanting Liberty, and then the entire crowd behind her starts chanting Liberty, and then Supergirl flies away in disgust while Ben Lockwood goes into jail with the biggest smile on his face. And that's not the end of the episode, but granted, there are two other shows that also had that same ending, so we will save that for later on in the discussion. But yeah, Zad, what did you think about this episode?
I liked it. I mean, I love Supergirl all season so far. It's just that I can't help but to think that Agent Liberty, even though he got apprehended this week, he's still winning because all that Supergirl did, and by Manchester trying to assault him, and by Supergirl finding out and unveiling his true identity, all Supergirl did was really kind of make Ben Lockwood a martyr, even though he's not dead. It's just now that everybody, it seems like now that everybody is can put a name to the face of Agent Liberty, they trust it a lot more, and they feel like they can back him a lot more. One thing also that happened in the episode was over at Catco, there's a protest because James has been very vocal about the Children of Liberty and how they're anti-hate, how they're a hate group, and how the Catco will not publish anything like disparaging against aliens. And there's a Agent Liberty protest that's happening outside around the building. So Ben Lockwood has a lot of people on his side right now, which is crazy. I mean, you would think this would have been the episode where the good guys got the upper hand, but Supergirl no longer works for the DEO, and even though he's incarcerated, I'm pretty sure he's going to a jail with people that probably feels just the same way he does. Winning.
Yeah, and again, we've mentioned in countless discussions beforehand that despite the fact that this show is about an alien who protects Earth, it's the most human show out of all three, to say the least, because we're seeing a lot of reflections in real life through the show of Supergirl. And in this, in the example you just mentioned, it's basically in the battle between facts and feelings. Feelings shouldn't be winning, but the people who fight that fight think they are, and that's basically what has happened. Is that even though Supergirl brought a murderer to justice, she has sort of come out as the loser in this fight, which is crazy. Like, imagine if you flipped Rocky IV on its head, and like, because that's, think about it. Drago was the favorite. Drago was the favorite, and then the crowd starts chanting USA, USA, because Rocky is absorbing all this punishment and continuing to fight. Ben Lockwood has now been sent to jail, and yet that has gotten more people behind him because they like that he's not giving up his fight, and they want to be part of that movement. And it just sucks for Supergirl because, like, everything she worked so hard for to make the world a better place is now being just tarnished because of where she comes from.
Yeah, it's a very sad thing because you're kind of seeing the de-civilization of the humans on that show, and not all of them, of course, but just you're starting to see like just how much hatred has been underlined with the good citizens of National City, which is, again, if you hold the mirror up to our current situation, well, yeah.
Before we move on to Arrow, can you refresh my memory as to what happened at the end of this episode with Manchester Black and John Jones?
Well, and I'm glad you said that because that actually kind of leads me to possible hopes. At the end of this episode, Manchester is being taken is going to jail also. But the conversation between actually he's in jail, and John just decides to phase into the building, first of all. But so while he decides to have a conversation, Manchester still believes that he has Manchester still believes that John is in a way has his back and that he's still ruling for him, that he's still trying to save his soul. And Manchester has no fear in telling John all about this. And John claims that he saw good in once in him, and he's hoping for the best. And eventually John leaves the building. But I'm very curious to know, is Manchester in the same prison that Lockwood is in? And also a little bit of information I found out also this week is that another member of the Elite is being casted to come on Supergirl sometime either this season or next season. And the Elite is a group which I mentioned earlier in this season, is a group that Manchester is a part of, at least in the DC movie Superman versus the Elite. And of course now it's like Supergirl versus the Elite. And Manchester is about to gain an ally. I'm not sure if he's going to gain this ally in prison or what, but I'm really looking forward to seeing more of Manchester because while what he did was very wrong in this episode, if he would have just found out about Agent Liberty's location and who he was and informed the authorities or informed the DEO, it would have been a lot better. But I would have had no problem with anything he did. But he kind of took justice into his own hands, or I'm not even sure if you can call it justice, vengeance in his own hand. And he just pushed it a little bit too far by trying to basically killing an innocent woman. Agent Liberty killing Fiona, another innocent woman, does not justify Manchester killing Agent Liberty's wife. No way, no how. Because again, she is just another innocent woman as well. So, but despite all that, I'm hoping that eventually there might be a redemption arc for him. I'm not sure if there will, but I'm very looking forward to seeing more Manchester on the show. I'm sure he's going to go away for a little bit, but I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next with him.
Dude, my pro wrestling brain, when you said the Elite, I was thinking, I was thinking one of Cody Rhodes' friends is getting cast in the Arrowverse, and I got super excited.
Hey, Cody's been on one show. Why not Matt and Nick Jackson, I think? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey.
Or better yet, Kenny Omega. He's doing work for the Street Fighter games. Why not give him a role in Supergirl? Like, he could pass for a comic book character. He has the look.
I can believe that with all that hair. Definitely he could be a comic book character.
All right, so you want to pick things up with this week's Arrow?
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to just notate in Supergirl was that during a scene with Brainy, when Brainy and Supergirl or Kara goes to visit Nia the first time, there's a little interaction. Well, in this episode, there's a little interaction between Brainy and Nia that he calls her Nura by mistake, and he tries to play it off like, "Did you call her Nura?" No, I ain't calling Nura. No, who says that? And the only reason I'm bringing that up is, if I'm not mistaken, there's that word again. There's that phrase again. Nura is the name of Dreamer in the actual comic books, so it kind of has me wondering: is Nia possibly an ancestor of Nura in the future? Because there's been kind of a attraction somewhat towards Brainy and Nia this season, so it makes me kind of wonder. And since Nia's, I think she called it Ironmancy, her telepathic powers is genetic. Maybe Brainy knows like her great granddaughter in the future. So just wanted to notate that there.
That is very interesting.
That would be very interesting.
It makes me wonder now, did he have the hots for that ancestor the same way he does for Nia? Are we dealing with our own version of like Captain America and the Carter family here?
This is a very good point. Yeah, even though that's still a little weird to me. I like your great Aunt Peggy. Now I dig you, girl. So, that's weird. They're the same. Sharon Carter is dating somebody the same age of her grandmother. But you know what? We're getting to a whole different business right there. But
yeah. So let's move away from potential incest and just let's get into Arrow.
Yeah, let's move away from the MCU for now. We'll go back to Arrow. Arrow's episode this week was called Unmasked, and my God, the very first scene of this episode, I think I know who it is, but we see who has been under the veil of the new Green. I was about to call him Green Lantern, the new Green Arrow for this season, and it's this girl. And that's all that we know. So if you were writing down, and if you were having an office pool and saying that Roy is the new Green Arrow, William, that was my guess. It's the new Green Arrow. Just go ahead and cross it out. You're wrong. This new girl is the Green Arrow, and they just automatically go. She receives a phone call, if I'm not mistaken, and then just they go to the title screen. So then we cut to Arrow. Arrow, not Arrow, but Ollie and Felicity, and Ollie's out of jail, right? And Ollie's gonna have it's some type of gala for prison reform later that day. So while going to this gala, the whole team gets together at this gala, and Ollie's being honored as kind of a spokesperson of how the prison system needs to be reformed and everything. And at this moment, somebody, an assassin, decides to shoot at two members in this two civilians at this point at this assembly. And while he's trying to shoot the second person, Oliver grabs the arrow before it can before it can hit the person. What's up?
I was just gonna say, like an absolute badass, he catches that arrow.
Yeah, he just catches it in midair. It's just badass. But unfortunately, one person is dead. So Oliver, Dinah, of course, is still captain. So he's trying to offer his help to Dinah and trying to figure out who this new assassin is. Oliver and Dinah in their heads are thinking that it's the new Green Arrow, but Renee is is just adamant that no, this can't be my boy. This can't be my new Green Arrow. He's helped me a lot. And turns out eventually he's right because there's a copycat going on. There's a copycat of Green Arrow that's happening in Star City. That's a little tidbit, and it's gonna play a factor into later. Also, Oliver goes while trying to investigate because the the victim that has got killed at this function has a connection to an asshole that we previously met in season 1 of Arrow, by the name of Max Fuller, and that name sounds familiar. He's the DB that Oliver and Tommy went to his club back in season 1, and he pretty much starts a fight with Oliver and Tommy, and eventually gets his ass kicked by Laurel Lance, the first one, the one that's dead now. But they get kicked out of his club, and he swears he hates Oliver. He says, "You never allowed back in my club." But now that he knows that Oliver's the Green Arrow, buddy, Oliver, yo, my best buddy right here. Yes, I missed you, man. Anyway, they have a discussion because it turns out also later that night, another person was killed who just happened to be the same. Guy that was about to get targeted at the function the day before. Another person's get killed, and strangely enough, they both have connections to Max Fuller. They turned out to, I believe they went to the same college, and they were part of the same. They ain't call it a secret society, but the same type of society at college. Matt says he has no idea what's going on, but the two of those guys, he says that the two of those guys were always kind of underhanded people. And yes, I'm sorry that hear that something happened to him, but they were never on the up and up. And he claims that he has nothing to do with it, and he wishes Oliver the best of luck as Oliver leaves. And Oliver, of course, knows that something's up. And I think even at us as an audience, we can tell he's not telling us the full truth. Now, as Oliver leaves, want to also piggyback on something. Dinah at this time has realized that the new Green Arrow is not the assassin because Oliver, Dinah, and Renee, in hopes of clearing the new Green Arrow's name, Renee tries to set up a meet between all three of them. However, they get made, and it leads to a pretty damn good chase scene between Oliver and this new Green Arrow, and they're I think they meet in a shipyard, and Oliver's chasing, doing his parkour up and down buildings and on top of cranes and stuff. But eventually, the new Green Arrow gets away. But because of this interaction of the night before, they know that the new Green Arrow is not the same person that's going around killing people in the city, because when they were chasing them, another guy was being killed by the fake arrow across town. So flashback. Let's go back to right after Oliver leaves his boy Max Fuller's club. When he gets back home, him and Felicity have a pretty heated argument, and I'll bring some more of the stuff up there that they're talking about. But shit gets really real in this episode between the two of them. But then somebody decides to break into Oliver's apartment, Oliver and Felicity's apartment, which to me kind of makes no sense. How the hell why in the hell do you decide to break into the apartment of the Green Arrow? What sense does that make? I mean, it's not Diaz, first of all. No, it's just some random regular ass assassin that's good at archery. That's not a smart move. You're dealing with the OG here. But that's just my 2 cents. He breaks into Oliver and Felicity's apartment. Things do not go well for him. And as Oliver's trying to disarm him, Felicity pulls out a gun. And she tells him guy to stop. And as he's about to leave, Felicity actually shoots him. And Oliver is just like shocked because he's never seen this side of his wife. But we know somebody who has seen this side of his wife. That would be my girl, Laurel Black Siren Lance, because as she has said many times over the last couple of weeks, Felicity is now ruthless. She's not the same girl that Oliver fell in love with. And that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out throughout the line. Anyway, Oliver, after telling Dinah about everything that happened at their apartment, the mayor of the city is pretty gung-ho about no vigilantes like running across the street. She does not trust vigilantes at all. So Oliver, unbeknownst to the mayor at the time, becomes an official, I guess, consultant. I wouldn't call him a police officer. He becomes an official consultant of the SCPD, and eventually him and Dinah, because they realize that Max Fuller, that is the guy that paid the assassin, who hired the assassin to kill his two buddies from the secret society, and to kill Oliver because he was too close to everything. So they go down. Oliver and the SCPD go to Max's club and basically take him down. It's a pretty good hallway fight scene that Max is trying to leave and Max is trying to get out of there, and Oliver's taking out a bunch of people in the hallway with arrows flipping and people shooting at him, but he still doesn't get hit, which is again amazing to me. But it just leads to a good conflict resolution scene, because at the end, it's kind of a good gotcha scene, not conflict resolution scene, because whenever they arrest Max Fuller and bring him back to the station, the mayor comes back with her chest puffing out and saying, I'm glad to see you. Now, Captain Drake, I want you to arrest Oliver right here on the spot for breaking the anti-vigilante law. And that's at that moment where Dinah decides to tell her, no, he's not breaking any laws. He's actually a part of the police force now. So that was a pretty good shut up moment for the mayor in my eyes. But there's some other things that happen via flash forwards in this episode, and a pretty big, well, I'm not sure if it's a pretty big thing just yet. William and Dinah and Zoe meet up with this girl named Blackstar, who was supposedly accomplice with Felicity in the future. And to me, she looks kind of familiar. So I'm kind of wondering if she's going to end up having familial ties to anybody eventually. In this show, you never know. Because if we flash back to the past, when we flash back to the past, this girl that we saw at the very beginning of the episode is talking to somebody. She's out on the run talking to somebody, and it said he's more like you than I thought. That, or she said something like Oliver's a lot more stubborn, or Oliver's more like you than I thought, Dad. And eventually the camera pans around to see this girl talking to the gravestone of Robert Quinn. Yes, this girl I'm not sure who her mother is, at least in this storyline, but it's pretty much confirmed that she is Oliver's half sister. And if you want to know about the comics, the girl's name is Emiko Queen, and I'm not sure if they're going to stick with that story or how they're going to deal with her backstory, because in the comics, Emiko Queen is the daughter of Robert Queen and Shadow. I don't think they'll go that route with this time, but I'm very interested in seeing how they're going to deal with her reveal eventually, and how things are going to go when Oliver finds out he has another sister who's, interestingly enough, interested in archery and is a pretty damn good archer. So I'm not sure what's up with that family becoming vigilantes of some type, but that's pretty much everything that happened on Arrow this week. So a little bit something with Diggle and his wife,
Lila.
kind of having Lila. Thank you. Kind of seems like they're about to betray the team a little bit, because they're having to consult with Diaz, but they didn't really, even the show didn't really go too much into their backstory this week. So I'm pretty sure we'll find more about what's going on with Diggle and Lila. Not next week, but probably the week after that.
Okay, so first, I feel like you are still in Stardust mode, where you're like, let me give the best review I possibly can, and I like that. But we're gonna run into the risk of going 2 hours again. So
yeah.
So let's try to keep things short for the remainder of the other shows. But yeah, just to piggyback off of everything you said, I had a feeling that whoever this new Green Arrow was going to be female. I just didn't have a name to place underneath the hood. But I had a feeling that the big reveal was that it was going to be like an Enfys Nest moment, if you will, for those of you who are fans of Star Wars, the movie Solo, when Enfys Nest, that character who steals the train, and then we find out at the end of the movie that, it's this very tiny girl underneath that big suit of armor. Very interesting. But yeah, I had that same kind of like, oh, okay, I like this. I like where this is going when they did that reveal, both at the beginning and even more so at the end. I wouldn't be surprised if Robert Queen maybe knew Shadow at some point, and then there was something freaky going on. I don't know.
That would be so weird though for Shadow, not just for Robert, because I'm pretty sure unless he didn't die on the raft, which would be interesting. What if Robert Quinn did not die on the raft? He showed himself in the no, that can't be possible. That can't be possible.
There's so much to think about. But yeah, other points. I like that Oliver now no longer has to hide in the shadows. He can actually do his thing legally, which is cool. Because I believe there's like this one MMA fighter in real life who does vigilante work in accordance with the police's. I believe his alias is Phoenix Jones.
Yes,
I forget what state.
I think Washington, if I'm not mistaken, like in the Seattle area.
Okay, Seattle. That's where he operates. I wasn't sure, but
Sure.
yeah. If you remember Seattle, I'm going to take your word for it. But yeah, there is a way, depending on what state you live in and what city you live in, to sort of do vigilante work within the law. And Oliver has found that balance where he can work with the police as a consultant, if as you said, because Lord knows the Star City Police Department needs all the help they can get. And yeah, I think the police department is better for it. How this is going to blow up in everyone's face, that is the question, because let's face it, it's a CW comic book show. Things that eventually start out good have to go bad at some point. So this deal is going to have a sad turn eventually. It's just a matter of how does that happen. And yeah, Felicity, apparently future William is finding out that she is not the person he thought she was. And we're kind of getting glimpses of that in the present as well, because Felicity, Oliver being in jail really changed her. Diaz showing up at her doorstep trying to murder her and then threatening William, that messed her up. And now she's like the witty Felicity that was peaceful and saw the best in everyone. She's gone. Yeah. Like she has PTSD now, and like she has become ruthless from it. So it'll be interesting to see. Like, I really hope they don't break up the marriage, but they're kind of teasing it, because apparently that's a recurring theme in these shows as well, is that in order to be an accomplished vigilante, you have to have marital problems or issues in your love life. See Supergirl and Mon-El. See Oliver and Felicity from season 4. It's just over and over and over again. It's a never-ending cycle with that type of work, and I don't know. I want to see them stay together. I don't want this change in Felicity to be the downfall of their marriage, but I worry that it might be.
I agree, because Felicity has definitely changed a lot from who she. When she says that Oliver, I'm not the same woman that you married. She's exactly right, because she has dealt with a lot. I mean, she's had to deal with a lot while Oliver was in prison. There was a moment where she says, "How selfish were you when you didn't consult with us before you decided to reveal yourself to the world and make me and William targets?" And I'm not sure if Oliver has thought about that, because that's exactly what he did whenever he decided to tell everybody, "Hey, I'm the Green Arrow. I am the Green Arrow." He officially painted big old target signs on his wife's and William's back. And while William is safe, as far as we know, in boarding school, Felicity has had to deal with a lot just being in the public eye in Star City.
Any other things you want to cover before we move on to Legends?
Not really from Arrow. everything. I just like this episode a lot. I'm really looking forward to more about Emiko and seeing how what happens with her. I feel like we'll probably learn more about that after the break, though, because since we have Elseworlds next week, and then probably the mid-season finale the week after that, we probably won't get too much into her character or her unmasking until January or February or something like that.
Okay, so now we move on to Legends of Tomorrow. This week's episode was titled "Hell No, Dolly," which is a very it's a funny title. I like it, and I like this episode as well. There are multiple arcs going through this episode, and we don't get a resolution to them because of, say it with me, damn it, Barry, but not Barry, but the timeline got fucked anyway. So let's get down to brass tacks here. So this episode kind of starts out with Sarah and why am I blanking on her name now? I've been watching this for weeks. Why am I blanking on it?
Ava.
Ava. Yes, thank you. So Sarah and Ava, they're going to spend some time on the Wave Rider as opposed to at their apartment, and we get an interesting arc in which she like Ava and Rory are struggling to get along. I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but yeah, like we understand where one of those arcs is going to go because they're talking about why is Rory still using that book that was used to create that giant Kraken monster in Japan, and because apparently what's the lady's name with the three boobs, the alien creature?
Oh, Garima. R.I.P. Garima.
Garima is walking around the ship freely, and Ava sees this as problematic because Mick Rory, an arsonist, has his hands on a book that can create magical creatures from out of nowhere. So Ava is questioning, babe, are you sure you're running the ship right? But getting down to the meat of the episode. So they're having breakfast cereal. Ray has a mustache because apparently Nora Dark likes mustaches. I think they're the creepiest thing on earth.
Oh my god, he looks like Tom Selleck. I'm like, Bray, come on, man.
But yeah, he has a mustache and he's reading the back of a cereal box and he's like, who's the worst murderer of all time? I think that's kind of how it went. And Ava, she apparently knows a lot about murders, and that's making Sarah think, okay, I should probably watch out for my girlfriend now. Don't know what I'm going to find. But anyway, Ava says one name, and the box says another name. And that's when they figure out, okay, something's wrong here. Gideon, and then they find out that there is a murderer running around in New Orleans. Well, what was the year?
It was 1856. 1856, New Orleans, yeah.
So these murders were blamed on one of the most prominent black figures at that time, but the murder MO matches up with someone Ava is pretty familiar with, the notorious Mike the Spike. And so Team Legends does some digging. They go to a party where there are people who fit the victim MO, and Ray does some exploring. He goes into this child's room, and apparently Mike the Spike has possessed a doll. We're going flat out Chucky.
100%. 100% Chucky.
Yeah, and how they sort of stopped him in quotation marks, is Mick just set the doll on fire to the point that the doll couldn't move anymore. But that was actually kind of a bad decision because they bring the burnt doll then onto the ship where the soul is still kind of stuck in there. But anyway, that part of the story is kind of like put on the back burner for a little bit as we get into other things. Example, more of Ava and Mick Rory trying to understand each other, And things did not go well. They tried to have a dinner, but it ended poorly. Mick used the C word, and by C word I mean clone, and Ava did not take kindly to it. Yeah, that did not work out well. That did not. But other plot points. Mona is developing a crush on the hairy Hawaiian creature whose name I'm forgetting.
I think his name was Koana. His name was Koana. Or no, Kanone. But he's like a Kofu. The creature type is like called a Kofu, but his name like Konane. But that's so weird. But continue.
Yes, and like Nate is giving her advice on how to approach this relationship, thinking that she's talking about Gary. So so Mona just decides, I'm gonna follow my heart. By the way, she got injured in a bike accident where a dude who wasn't looking just like opened his door and she got hit by the door, and then he says, "You're gonna pay for that," and she's like, "But no, you're gonna pay for that." And so she's like struggling to stand up for herself, but she spills her heart out to Konane is how you said the name.
Yeah.
And turns out Konane is getting abused by douchebag who hit her with his car. And towards the end of the episode, Konane is being kidnapped by this douchebag, and Mona goes to save him. And Konane, in a fit of rage trying to escape from these guys, accidentally just like slices her abdomen open, and as she's bleeding out, she's just like, "Go, run! I'm getting dizzy, but you go on ahead. Go." Yeah, like where is any bit of where is your self-preservation in that moment?
Mm-hmm. And again, don't you love how this is a secure facility, but all this shit is going down? But just note, put a pin in that for the moment.
These shows follow a serious trope of just like maximum security prison that people easily break out of. Mm-hmm. My God. But anyway, that's plot point C or D. The other C or D is John. Well, actually, this could be considered the A plot because it has a lot of consequences. And basically, we find out that Charlie, she can still somewhat shapeshift. It looks pretty gross when she tries to do it, but she can still kind of shapeshift. And so she's like, "Constantine, you liar, you told me my shapeshifting was gone." And I feel a sneeze coming on. But, excuse me.
Bush it.
I feel it coming on, but it's not coming on.
Try to beat you a bunch. Bush it.
Oh, geez. Oh, it tickles. Okay, I'm going to fight through this. So while... I'm sorry. Like, I don't know. This is hitting me hard. It tickles. Okay, I'm good. So Constantine is like, even I don't understand how strong my magic is at times. So good on you for getting your powers somewhat back. But there's a deal arranged at some point where John is like, "You help me." Okay, there it is.
There it goes. And he's free, everybody. I want everybody to start clapping. Let's watch this. Come on, everybody. There you go. Free yourself.
Oh, thank you.
You feel a lot better now, don't you?
Very much so. Very much.
See, there we go.
So yeah, a deal is worked out between Constantine and Charlie, where he's like, "You help me, I'll help you." They're trying to find the voodoo lady who's being accused of all these murders, and apparently this voodoo lady is a descendant of this dude that Constantine really has the hots for. We see a flashback of them having a hot night out in New Orleans, of all places. And the dude's name is Desmond, which is one of the sexiest names you can possibly give a man with that kind of body that Desmond has. So, yeah, CW writers, you didn't hold any punches there with that name. But anyway, so we find out that something happened to Desmond, and we're not entirely sure what it is. But, well, actually, we eventually do find out. We find out he got sent to hell by this demon that Constantine made a deal with And do you remember the demon's name at all?
His name was Neron. Yeah,
Okay,
Neron. Yeah, Neron.
so literally just one letter away from Necron, the head of the Black Lanterns.
I thought about that too. Interesting.
Yeah. But so Constantine, he makes a promise to this voodoo lady who's, I apologize, I can't remember her name. I thought the episode notes would be up on Wikipedia here, but apparently they are not for this week. Yeah, she says, save my kin. My kin obviously trusted you enough to give you my prized medallion. So please do him right, save him from whatever plagues him in the future. And we find out that what happened was, because of that deal that Constantine made with the demon ends up possessing Desmond. And so Constantine has to send Desmond to hell to send Neron to hell.
Mm-hmm.
And it kills him inside. It kills him inside, and he wants to do whatever it takes to save Desmond's life, including fuck up the timeline. So he tries to first erase the moment where they first meet. That did not work. Apparently, it's a fixed moment in time. They are destined to meet each other. So then he thinks, okay, then I can break us up instead. That actually did work. He pretended to be himself, while the version of himself from that particular point in time was getting groceries. And he was like, listen, I put a love spell on you. What you're feeling isn't real. Desmond knows it's BS, but he still feels heartbroken, and he walks out, and all of a sudden, here comes the timeline change. Now, as the timeline is changing, a million things are happening at once. Mona is bleeding out from Konane scratching her to death. Zari and Charlie are trying to stop Constantine from doing what he just did.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike the Spike has now possessed a puppet of Martin Stein and is trying to stab Sarah, Ava, and Mick Rory. Now, thankfully, at this point in time, Mick and Ava are getting along. By the way, rip to Ray's mustache, because it did not survive this encounter. Zad is giving a prayer.
I did that wrong. Yeah, but yeah, it was bad. Yeah, I couldn't think they could make that mustache look any worse than they did. And then this moment happens, like, God, come on, Brandon.
But yeah, the mustache ends up going, and the timeline, everything is frozen except in the time ship. And the episode ends with Charlie being able to shapeshift again, and Zari is now a cat, which fits perfectly because next week's episode is titled Legends of Tim Meow Meow, which is hilarious, and it reminds me very much of in Thor when Darcy kept mispronouncing Mjolnir, and she kept saying meow meow.
Meow meow.
But that's basically what happened in Legends of Tomorrow. So many things, so much nonsense. That's why this is one of the best shows on the CW today, because they just don't. They're just going to throw anything and everything at the wall and see what sticks, and we love it for it. But Zed, what were your thoughts on this episode?
This episode, and mind you, I've seen a lot of. I've seen every episode of Legends Tomorrow, but this may be one of the craziest episodes yet. I mean, and it's not really the fact of John and like John's his story. It was everything that was happening with the D-Book and Mike the Spike and with the dolls, and eventually become him the spirit of the killer going to Puppet Stein. I mean, they literally went so hard with the horror movie tropes in this episode. And again, it was very Chucky-esque. Like, you might be scared of Chucky as a kid, but when you're an adult and you look at Chucky, like, my God, this is silly. And he's literally knocking out full-grown people. He knocks out Ray at him. Knocks out Ray. Is about to is trying to kill Mick, Ava, and Sarah, and it's just amazing that this is happening. But I think that was crazy. The interesting thing with John is I hate how, and I mentioned this pre-call, is I know he's trying to help save somebody, but when save the love of his life almost, or save somebody he loves dearly. But when everybody that's on the ship, that aboard on the time traveling ship, tells you that certain moments cannot be changed in time, or if you do, you risk screwing up the timeline, you should probably listen to those people. However, he doesn't, and now at least Zari right now is a cat. I'm not sure what's happening with John, but everybody else, time since is frozen in place. 2018 has frozen in place, and now we're just dealing with, I guess, the Legends of Tamamau next week. So John, he's been a great asset to the team so far. I still think I feel like his hubris is kind of messing with the team's what's the word I'm looking for? Team's symmetry or synergy. There we go. And also, just another pinpoint is I feel like Ava and Sarah are, again, what happens with most relationships on these shows. I feel like they're not headed towards a good place, because this is probably the third episode this week that Ava's kind of not degraded Sarah in a way in her leadership abilities, and because this is not how Ava would do something. She kind of degrades Sarah and how she's allowing this to happen. I think it happened on the episode whenever Nate first came aboard, and also, when Nate first came to the Time Bureau, and also I think the episode when they were at summer camp, and Ava's kind of degrading Sarah, like, listen, these kids need justice, and they need order and discipline, and Sarah wants to be one with the girls, and I feel like this relationship is kind of doomed.
I'm still gonna hold out hope for them, because, like, isn't that what again? I'm bringing up Marvel here, but in The Punisher, I remember that Frank Castle mentioned to Claire, what is her last name?
Oh, the night nurse?
No, not the night nurse. Karen Page. I'm sorry, not.
Okay, Karen.
That's what I meant to say. He mentions to Karen Page when talking about his late wife. That's what you want, is someone who you will get into arguments with, and who will tell you when you're wrong and keep you straight on your bullshit. And so, like, I feel like that's what we're seeing, is like they're kind of already they're getting close to that married stage of where, like, they can say, honey, are you sure this is a good idea? Like this is how relationships, there has to be some questioning with one another to make sure that everything is okay. So, like, I can see some justification for it. I'm hoping they don't do what they normally do in these shows, which, as you pointed out, is like relationships rarely ever survive. So, Berlanti, Kreisberg, don't do this to us again. Like, let there be a positive end game to these squabbles between these two. But yeah, I now understand why this show is not part of this year's crossover, and that's because while reality is being written on those other three shows, there's a different form of reality rewriting going on here. Because so interesting, and it's also much easier on the Legends cast to not have to do the crossover again, because there's just too much shooting, and these poor actors need a break once in a while. Like, they work hard on these shows. But yeah, I'm just rambling. So let's get to episode 100 of The Flash, shall we?
It was a great episode. Now, try to do this as speedy as I can. I kind of meant that as a pun in a way, but it didn't work out as well as I wanted to. However, 100 episode of The Flash. We start off the episode pretty much with them, the team trying to figure out a way how they can stop Cicada, because they now know who he is, but they just can't get to him not with his dagger on. So Nora comes up with the idea, air quotes, to build a power dampening dagger, or just call it the dagger dampener eventually. So they can steal Cicada's dagger away, which is basically just like a huge, which is just a really powerful magnet. So they decide they need three things. To build this. They have to go back to the past to get these items. Also, they need a piece of Savitar suit. They need a speed force transmitter from season 2, when my boy Zoom was on the show when he stole Barry's speed. And then they also need like some significant. They need a lot of dark matter, to which forces them to go all the way back to season 1 to when the particle accelerator exploded. So Barry and Nora go together. They have a little a spat where Barry doesn't want to take Nora, but eventually he does. So they go back, and the first thing is they steal the shard from Savitar suit, and everything works out fine. However, Barry realizes they're being followed by a time race. So after they steal the shard, they run back. They run away quickly, and eventually they go back. They make it back to season 2 and lose the time rate and go back to season 2, and they're able to steal the Speed Force transmitter from when Caitlin just got kidnapped from Zoom, and while Barry is taking it, he gets seen by Dr. Harry Wells, not Harrison Wells, but Harry at this point. I'm kind of wondering there's going to be ramifications for this, but he pretty much disguises himself as his present self at that time, and he gets the Speed Force transmitter before Harry breaks it. However, on his way out, before he's about to leave, Zoom inexplicably comes back, and he sees Barry and Nora, and he decides to chase them throughout the city. So Barry and Nora go through, open up the portal again, the Speed Force portal again, and they're running to get to their next destination. And Zoom is following them. However, the time break comes back. He takes Zoom instead of capturing Barry or Nora. However, this little I don't want to call it anachronism, because that's anachronism. This little event has basically causes Barry and Nora to be spit out through the Speed Force and end up in some random time that they don't know exactly what's going on. And also at the moment, Barry just happens to break the Speed Force transmitter. So they realize they need unfortunately for Barry, he realizes that he knows where he is right now. He realizes that he needs Harrison Wells' help. So he has to, and at this moment, it's not good Harrison Wells. This is actually Earbar Dunn dressed as still in his Harrison Wells get up. And surprisingly, this goes back to season 2, the episode a flashback, where Barry has previously already traveled back in the past to get Wells' help, because he's trying to, I believe at that time he was trying to fix the tachyon processor, if I'm not mistaken. So Barry and Nora talk to Dunn Wells at this point, and Dunn has a very pretty good he's fixated on Nora for some reason. And he calls her Dunn. He name drops a bunch of other speedsters, and he says this one savagely brutal line, but we'll talk about that later. So after Dunn Wells fixes the Speed Force transmitter, the last thing they have to do is they have to go back to the particle accelerator explosion and eventually juice up their Speed Force to their power dagger, their dagger dampener. That's what we're gonna call it. That's what they call it. That's what I'm gonna call it. Their dagger dampener. So eventually they succeed in doing that, and they go back to the present, seemingly with no consequences, with nothing changing so far. So they put their plan in motion to stop Cicada. And Barry goes and forgot to mention this, back in the past, the same night, the night of the particle accelerator explosion, they used the time hack where Barry phased into a wall at the hospital and hit the the dagger dampener, basically in a pillar on the hospital. So when they go back in the future, the pillar is still there. So that means the device is there also. So when they eventually get Cicada outside, they lure Cicada outside, and the plan seems to work. Everything's going fine. However, they're able to disarm Cicada and send his dagger into space. However, the pull with Cicada and his dagger is so strong, he literally basically calls his dagger from the heavens, and it drops from space onto the ground and pretty much knocks out the entire team. It looks like Cicada is about to kill everybody. Of course, we know he's not because we got Elseworlds next week. However, he's not that all metahumans. However, the only person that's there that's not a metahuman is actually Killer Frost. And Killer Frost comes out and pretty much saves the day again. Like, this season has been a pretty damn good season for Danielle Panabaker, if I may say so. So, well, Cicada disappears, and it seems like even though they were able to take down Cicada, they were able to at least they say next time we'll get them. We know how we can approach them. We know what we did wrong. We just don't do it again. So that's pretty much the end of the episode. However, throughout this episode, Sherlock has kind of been suspicious of Nora, and he stole her diary. And he realized that she's writing some kind of Speed Force language, the same language with symbols that we saw Barry writing in season 4. So she calls it a time language. And we realized that at the end of the episode that Nora has been sending messages through Gideon to somebody in the future. So Nora is about to send another message, but she decides, no, I'm going to deliver it myself. So Nora zooms into the future in the year 2049 into a prison where we all come to realization that Nora has been in communication with Earbar Dawn from the future. This sucks. I'm pissed. I'm like, Nora, I knew something was off about her, but I did not think it was this. And I feel like she didn't know everything that Earbar had done before, but I feel like she knows more about Earbar now. So this was the last scene of the episode. Well, the last scene of the official episode. And how did that make you feel, man? Starting with that moment.
So to describe my feelings for that moment, I have to bring up something you mentioned. This is the first episode where we're hearing of the mention of the name Dawn, which is significant in the comics because that is sort of the original name of Barry and Iris's child in the comics is Dawn West Allen. But instead here we have Nora West Allen, one of several people in this universe who are named Nora. And that made me wonder, okay, is she not who she claims to be, or is there something going on here that we don't know? Obviously, there's something going on that we don't know. And yeah, we were treated to more questions than answers at that final scene. So we now know she knows who Zoom is. Not Zoom. She now knows who Eobard Thawne truly is, in the same way that her dad knows who he is. And it has definitely changed whatever the relationship was between those two before. Because now she has the knowledge of like, dude, you murdered my grandma. What gives? But yeah, we now also know that apparently Nora was having contact with through Gideon into the future. So yeah, there's just so many unanswered questions here, and I'm not sure what to make of them exactly. But I will say that I do agree with you. I do love that Danielle Panabaker is getting a lot more to do this season. Like her arc has been like there's a reason why her arc has been. I don't want to call it the B arc, the B story, so I'll call out to the A- story to the A story that has been going on with Barry and Nora and Iris and Cicada, and now she's front and center in this Cicada storyline because we now know that she is the one character here who can stand up to him when everything else has not gone according to plan. And I like that. I like that. But with everything happening next week, one has to wonder, how much of the stories that we've just talked about for the past hour or so, how much is the landscape going to have been changed by the time Elseworlds is over? Like, for all we know, everything we've talked about could be meaningless by the time reality is fixed next week.
And that
so
also,
yeah.
No, I'm sorry. That also, I'm glad you said it, because throughout the end of this episode, I kept wondering, did Zoom just literally the main villain of season 2 literally just get kidnapped by a time ray? And maybe it's one of Zoom's clones, maybe, hopefully. Because if not, I'm pretty sure that's gonna have a major effect on the timeline somehow. And even though when Barry went back to the present day, everything seemed to be fine. He was discovered by Harry. Zoom got kidnapped by a time wraith, and he visited I want to say Don Wells back in the past. So that's just the second time he's to visit that same Eobard Don, by the way. So
and wait a minute, that the time wraith that got Zoom, wasn't that the Zoom that got turned into the time wraith at the end of season 2?
You know what? It might have been. Maybe not. Hopefully not, because that would be too much overlapping right there. That would make my head hurt. But it might be the same time wraith to eventually get Zoom. God, that would be weird.
I'm just going to assume that moment is going to get retconned by the events of next week. And so before we get to Black Lightning, we should probably, now that it's happened in all 3 of the episodes that it happened in, we should probably address that final scene featuring John Wesley's ship.
Yes, from Earth. The final scene of all these shows, Supergirl, Arrow, and of course not Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, Arrow, and The Flash, we are taken to a dystopian universe, which turns out to be Earth 90, where we just happens to feature the 90s Flash, John Wesley ship. And we see the body is some kind of war has happened, and we see the body has been littered with dead bodies of superheroes. Superheroes are lying all over the place. Super villains might be over the place, because I think it's very interesting. If we took some time, we could probably pinpoint a lot of people that look similar to like characters from other shows. I even think the Green Arrow from Smallville was one of the victims on the ground. But it's so weird. But eventually, John Wesley ship's Flash is still alive, still fighting, and there's this book on the ground, and the monitor comes down in a beam of light saying, "You failed." I know he didn't say you failed to see, but he's like, "You failed," and now he has to, like, I'm not sure what he's about to do. Do you have any idea if he's about to destroy the Earth 90 or what?
Whatever he's doing, John Wesley ship, who we're assuming is this Earth's Barry Allen, because again, Earth 90, 90s Flash. He was smart to run as fast as humanly possible, as fast as Speed Force will allow you to run, to get out of there, because either the universe that he lives in was going to be destroyed, or it was going to be completely rewritten into something unrecognizable. And we've heard a lot in the trailers for this crossover. We've heard John Wesley's ship say, "I will not let you do to this Earth what you did to mine." So yeah, whatever was done to Earth 90 is not a good looking place anymore. So, and granted, it wasn't a good looking place when we first see it, because obviously everyone was on fire and dead. But yeah, so things are going to be very interesting going into the crossover, because as you said, you recognized a lot of Smallville characters. I thought I recognized the helmet of the Hawk people.
Yes, I saw him too. Yeah, I think even the Ray's helmet was there.
Oh yeah, I thought I saw the Ray's helmet too. I wasn't sure though, because I was like, is that Guardian's helmet? Is that Diggle's helmet from when he's
Spartan.
Spartan. I wasn't sure, but yeah. Now that I think about it, I do think that was the Ray's helmet. Wouldn't be surprised if there was a red tornado body there somewhere, and I just missed that too. But yeah, like everything was on fire, so it was very easy to miss certain things. But yeah, with the crossover coming up next week, and with all the trailers we've seen for it, we know that reality is about to get a gigantic makeover over there on Earth 1 and Earth 38.
38.
Is that yeah? Like for all we know, they could end up merging. Who knows? We could have a convergence like event, or as I've seen on a couple websites that they might be setting up for next year's crossover, which could be Crisis on Infinite Earths. Who knows?
Very possible.
Possible. Who better to discuss a crisis than us, the hosts of Crisis on Earth Plex? But we'll find that out on Sunday, starting with The Flash, which is swapping air dates with Supergirl for the crossover special. It'll be The Flash, then it'll be Arrow, then, of course, Legends of Meow Meow, and then Supergirl will be finishing off the crossover, and then Black Lightning, I believe, is Black Lightning having its mid-season finale as well?
Yeah, it's their mid-season finale for Black Lightning next week, which... Yeah, I'll let you continue into Black Lightning, but yeah.
Well, we got to talk about it because it's the last show on the list. So, Zad, if you don't want to go too much into this, then let's try and keep this one brief.
Yeah, you can go ahead. You can go ahead and start it off with Black Lightning.
All right, so basically, I'll put it to you in the best summary I can. Jen and Khalil are on the run. Khalil tries to make a collection from the 100 Club. They realize he's on the run and there's a bounty on his head. Guns start firing. He starts throwing darts. He's cornered with a bag of money in his hand and nowhere to run. Jen electrocutes everybody. They run. They head to his auntie's house to hide. Jefferson is trying to find Jen. And Gamby and Anissa are sort of reconciling because she's still a little upset that he was pretending to be dead. Tobias sends an assassin after him, after Khalil, I mean. By the way, Tobias is now talking to his dead sister. So
yeah.
Yeah, is he losing his mind, or is this just how he's coping with it? Because you can even see on the assassin's face who he ends up hiring. She's like, "Isn't she dead? Like, how are you talking to her? Isn't she dead?" So yeah, she probably might have put two and two together as well, and be like, "Oh, he's losing it." Okay, but anyway, so yeah, the assassin goes over to Khalil's auntie's house. Khalil's auntie knows, baby, I know you're not a cop, so why don't we stop lying to each other? And then she tries to break in. Khalil then shoots his own auntie with a dart, knocking her out. I don't know why he thought that was the right decision.
I just hope it wasn't poisonous. Hope maybe he has different darts in his little arm gun or something, his little gun aces. So I hope so.
Yeah, because I'm just like, we don't have the context here of what's in that gauntlet. Did he just murder his aunt? What are we supposed to think? We don't have all the details. But anyway, so they managed to fend off long enough for Black Lightning and Thunder to jump in. They knock the assassin through a window while Jen and Khalil go hiding. By the way, there's something in the back of Khalil's head. We assume it's a tracker that Tobias put in there. And Jen, she sparks it out of commission. So now there's some electricity between those two, even more so, literally than figuratively. But yeah, they make a break for it. And I believe that's how the episode ends. I can't remember what happened if there was anything more that happened to that.
There was one thing that go ahead. I think you called it. Yeah.
Because I just looked at the description that's right in front of me, and that's that Tobias is apparently starting to put 2 and 2 together of like, Black Lightning keeps showing up for this one girl. Okay, that terrible disguise of just a pair of goggles is poor Zad. I've broken him yet again.
Oh my god. I'm sorry, continue. You can go ahead.
I'm gonna keep the camera on you just in case you make more faces, because like your reactions are priceless whenever I bring up the stupidity of these disguises. But yeah, like he's now pieced together. Okay, Black Lightning has only come after Jefferson Pierce's daughters, so I have to assume that's Jefferson Pierce underneath that pair of goggles. He finally figured that out, and he's one of the smarter villains that the Arrowverse has had. So it's kind of surprising that it's taken him this long to figure it out. But you know, he's now sort of put the pieces together. How that will impact the mid-season finale next week is unknown to us until we get to next week. But yeah, so is there anything else I've forgotten, or is that basically it?
There's literally nothing else that you forgot about this episode. But I mean, you can say that Anissa and her dad have had a problem because he kind of blames her a little bit for keeping the fact that Jen has been communicating with Khalil a secret, and Anissa and Jefferson, she kind of throws bars back at him. That's just father-daughter distrust right there. Lynn is freaking out home because she misses her baby, understandably. But the main thing is my feelings about this episode. I've been shaking my head. I am so disappointed at Jen right now. I mean, I was last week, but even this week's episode, I was even more so disappointed because one of the close to the last scene of the episode was Gamby is still tracking Jen and Khalil using one of his drones. And it seems like Jen only uses her power when she wants to, and she shoots his drone down out of the air, basically hiding herself away from Gamby and her family. And I'm so upset, disappointed with everything that Jen's doing, running away from her family, not talking to her family about this, or telling her family how she's feeling about this. And I can't relate to how to being a superpowered being with my mom or my dad, but I feel like she needs to handle this better than this. And the most disappointing thing about this is I feel like she started off strongly in the beginning of the season, even though she was trying to get a grips on her powers. It didn't seem like she was really letting it get to her. To now, she's becoming a power brat to me a little bit now, running away because she doesn't want to agree with her father's rules about how he wants to govern her with her powers, and how he wants to teach her controlling her powers. And eventually, she's the reason, in a way, of why Tobias is somewhat putting the strings together. Because if this had never happened, Tobias would never have realized that Black Lightning is showing up where Jen is, when this Pierce girl is showing up again. Why is he always saving her? Can he be? He never quite says it, but like you said, he's putting 2 and 2 together, and I think that is a direct correlation to what Jen, because there's a direct consequence to what Jen has been doing over these past couple episodes. So just been disappointing to me as a character. Great actress, not talking about the actress at all, people, but just the character arc of Jen.
But to the character of Jen's defense, as a teenager, I don't think you could ever really figure out what kind of consequence running away with someone you like could have in terms of like, oh, the guy who murdered my grandpa has now figured out that my dad is a superhero. Like, I don't think anyone could make that sort of mental jump.
Well, no, I just think she hasn't been thinking about anything that's happening. She hasn't been thinking about the consequences of her action with her family at all. I mean, she does try to contact her family just to let them know that she's fine. She eventually does, but it's like she never lets anything. She never really. I won't say she doesn't care about how they're feeling, but she doesn't think about how the consequences of her actions are going to affect her family in the end.
And that's kind of normal of a teenager. Like they're in that awkward stage of their lives where they're just like where focus is on the pressures of growing up, and like granted she's dealing with one of the weirdest cases of puberty
That's true.
A teenager can go through. So thinking about those kind of consequences, or rather not thinking about them, is kind of expected. So I can't really fault her for when those consequences come to play. But how things are going to play out in the mid-season finale next week, I have no idea. But because Tobias is now starting to put the pieces together, I have a feeling that, Tobias has some people on the inside of the Freeland government. So if he's putting the pieces together, he can maybe turn the people against Jefferson Pierce and take him down in the public eye in a different way than making Black Lightning look to be a villainous figure. Like instead, he can make Jefferson Pierce look like the villainous figure.
You know what that does? That does bring a bright side to it a little bit in a way, because Tobias was definitely my favorite part about this episode, because with you saying that, it kind of makes me feel like he could kind of take. I'm not sure if you watched Daredevil season 3 yet.
I have.
Yeah, I feel like he can kind of make pretty much be the kingpin role of Black Lightning, just how Wilson Fisk was for Daredevil in this past season. Make everybody again. He can either make Jefferson Pierce become a villain, or he can technically make Black Lightning look like a villain, because in everybody's eyes, he's the golden goose of Freeland now. He's everybody's. He's a man that's been wrongly convicted of murder for years and had to go in hiding. He's sympathetic. He's Freeland's sympathy card right now, and he was the best part about this episode to me, including a moment where he's waiting for Khalil's mama in the house, reading Moby Dick. Again, we've seen Tobias shoot somebody with a harpoon this season. Tobias shoot somebody with a harpoon this season, and now he's reading Moby Dick. Little meta moments like this is why I love the Arrowverse right there. Like, I see what you're doing there. Nice drop right there. Nice.
Oh, good Lord. I'm glad you picked up on that, because I did not. That is fantastic. That is fantastic. But we're coming up on the 90-minute mark now, just 8 minutes short of that. So I think it's time we close things out, and then we need to figure out how are we going to make sure we keep this short for next week.
We still have all shows to talk about, but yeah, I feel like Elseworlds will be able to be wrapped into one bit segment, probably. And next week, by the way, we will be joined by the host of Rankum over at Take 3 Productions, Malcolm Goldie Lay. He will happily discuss Elseworlds with us, so all the more reason to make sure we figure out a way to keep this discussion short and sweet and to the point. But until then, my partner in crime, Zaddeus Smith, where can the good people of the internet find you? You can find me Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Zaddeus Smith. That's ZA2Ds Smith. Our Twitter handle on Twitter is at @D_ZADD. Also, or on Instagram, if you want to be more specific, just find me at Zaddeus. That's just my first name. You can also find me right here on Multiplex every Thursday doing Crisis on Earthplex. Of course, make sure you come back for next week. We're discussing Elseworlds and even Legends of Meow Meow Meow, Legends of Tamama Meow, and the Black Lightning mid-season finale for next week. You can also find me on the Stardust app doing movie and TV reviews. I will definitely be doing reviews of Elseworlds on there next week. So find me on Stardust at RetributionZ.
And you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube at Nico Suave Regoli. That's NicoSuaveRegoli. You can find me over on Film Nerd TV helping out with Combat Zone Wrestling Trivia. I am in the semifinals of the Gold Rush tournament to crown the first ever champion. I will discuss the main event in just a moment. You can find me helping out with Hunter Chambliss on the Week of Wrestling podcast every weekend. The name is self-explanatory. And I am now a member of Dedicated to Art's Star Wars Resistance recap show called Viva la Resistance. So tune into that every week where we talk about Star Wars Resistance and all the magic that comes from it. And, of course, you can find me right here at Multiplex Entertainment. That's the name of the Facebook group. And the YouTube channel, the Twitter is at MultiplexYT. The Instagram is Multiplex Entertainment Network. The TeePublic is just Multiplex. Check out our awesome shirts like this one right here. Zaddeus Smith's name is right on this shirt. So all the more reason to buy it. All the more reason to buy it. And the schedule for Multiplex goes as such. Monday is Movie Warzone. Tuesday is TV Throwdown, both singles and fandom. Wednesday is Sports Battlefield. For the TV and sports divisions, writers, editors, hosts, let's get those divisions back up and running on a regular basis for 2019. Thursday, we have this show right here, Crisis on Earthplex, with me and Zaddeus Smith, where we talk about all things Arrowverse, and eventually we're going to be branching out into other comic book shows as well. There's also the upcoming Co-Hoskers, hosted by Caleb Coho and Jake Brangoni, but let's be real, you don't want to watch that show because other than red carpet fashion, there's no reason to really care about the Oscars. Friday is Fandom Fight. Tomorrow is championship week for Fandom Fight. Robert Parker defends his title against Case Cornelese. And in the trivia community's first ever triple threat tag team match for the Fandom Fight team championships, it's going to be the Arkham Knights, Robert Parker and his brother Tim Berkala, taking on the Silver Shamrocks of the movie Warzone champion Paulo Yama and his partner Lucas Schilbach, taking on Dedicated to Art / Nuclear Option 2.0, Case Cornelese and Christopher Skywalker Doman. So be there to watch those matches. They are amazing, I promise you. So much fandom knowledge in just 2 videos. It's incredible. And of course, Saturday is Nerdgasm. That is our debate show, which I will never appear on because debates are awful. I don't know when it's coming back, but when they do, again, I'm not going to be there. And of course, we wrap everything up at Multiplex in a nice little bow on Sundays with my show Around the League with Nico, where there will be guests from Fandom Fights Title Week this week, as well as Timothy T.M. Smith, our commissioner here at Multiplex. He has a very special announcement to make on this Sundays Around the League. So be there, tune in for it. And, of course, the John Regoli Memorial Triviathon for THON is happening from January 21st to January 27th. I have been working on the schedule. Zaddeus has seen the schedule, a lot of the matches that I am at least trying to book right now. And I got to tell you, if Tim Smith approves something I have planned for Saturday the 26th, I will be amazed because it looks like a nightmare to schedule, but the end result should be incredible if he does say go for it. But yeah, we're doing a whole bunch of matches here at Multiplex, over at Full Metal, in Jukebox over on Take 3, and of course we're main eventing with the inaugural championship match for Combat Zone Wrestling Trivia on the 27th. And we're raising money for the 4 Diamonds Pediatric Cancer Research Fund in partnership with Penn State THON and in honor of my dad who passed away last year to cancer. So we're doing some good things here at Multiplex. We're doing good things in the trivia community as a whole, and the future looks bright, especially with Elseworlds right around the corner. So that has been my partner in crime, Zaddeus E-Man Smith. Wave to the public goodbye.
These are good people. Hashtag bring people back. Don't forget.
And hashtag fuck Terra Nova.
Oh,
and of course,
fuck Terra Nova.
And yes. And I have been Nico Suave Regoli. Don't fail the city. Come back next time.